You want to do roll call?
All right. Melissa Daly,
Present.
Larry Hampton,
Present.
Matthew Stidman. Oh,
Matthew's
he's
not
no longer
on.
there. Sorry. That's Randy Rickert.
Here. Yep.
Megan Norton,
Here.
Casey Banks,
Here.
Leslie Murray.
Here.
All right.
And
All present and accounted for. So first order of business was minutes. Hopefully you had a chance to look at those. Are there any questions or comments before we approve minutes? Is there a motion to approve?
I move we approve the minutes.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, great. All in favor? Let's raise a hand. Yeah, so we can all see each other. All right, any opposed? Randy, are you?
I think I need to abstain because I wasn't at
Since
the
we
last
weren't here?
meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine. Great.
Okay.
Okay, I'm flipping back and forth between the agenda and public comments. Is there anybody here for public comment?
there's Scott in the waiting as an attendee. If I don't know if he has public comment.
So I think this would be if, why don't you promote him up? Okay,
And I guess the question, Scott, if you can hear us, do you have a public comment? Or are you just listening in?
I'm just listening. I'm here for the next part.
Okay, great. Just wanted you to have an opportunity if you want it.
Appreciate it.
Okay, I think the next is what we just talked about. So yeah, Casey, I'll let you take over and Doug can lead you through as he needs to, and I'll be quiet.
so let's officially get on the record that Leslie, if you can each state that you're recusing yourself and stepping aside as part of this next conversation.
I am recusing myself from the next conversation.
As am I.
All right, thank you. So Casey,
Yes.
you're on board. So would you like me to kind of do a summary of what we have in front of us? Okay.
That would be very helpful. Thank you.
So we have in front of you your packet. So we did a notice of funding availability, which ended at the end of September. That's when Mary was here with us. So Mary had gone through and did the preliminary review. So in your packet of material, you have items number 1 through 6, which are the minimum thresholds. Mary had concluded that the minimum thresholds had been met, or that some of them did not apply to the 2 applications that we received. One point of clarification is that there is actually only $16,755 available. Mary, as we were going through budget and doing all of this, I think we pulled a different number, but what's in the actual adopted budget is $16,755. So what you have in front of you is 2 proposals. One is dealing with Peace Trail Village, and they've submitted their materials and their written responses. You've had the opportunity to read through those. Their requested funding amount is from $10,000 to $50,000. So we know that the upper end exceeds the budget capacity that's available. North Valley Friends Church has provided a written narrative. They provided drawings. From our last Affordable Housing Commission meeting, there was some additional questions that came up. I pushed those out to North Valley Friends Church. The responses to those questions are included in your packet of material. The second application we have is from Scott and Melissa. And their request is for $10,000 and it's addressing a driveway. So you have the written narrative material that they had submitted for their application as well. So this puts us in the point of discussions, as we've done in the past, is for the commission members to score. And there goes my phone. So my job is to tally your scores. So when we get through that, I will be asking each of you to go through, and we'll go through items number 7 through 14. Give me your scores, and then I'll be able to total and add those up. If the commission would like a presentation by the applicants on their applications, we also have that opportunity. So I think maybe that's probably the first question. Would you like each of the applicants to give a brief summary of what their proposal is? If so, just raise your hands.
Well, I would like an opportunity to ask maybe some clarifying questions.
Okay, that sounds good.
Can I ask one question? So are we going to cover Peace Trail first and then Meridian Duplex? Or is it, what's the thought on that?
That is up to the commission of how you would like to do that.
I think it would be cleaner and easier for my left brain to do one than the other. If that's okay with the remaining, I think 4. Randy, Megan, Casey, Randy. Oh no, that's not 2 Randys. 3.
So you have Casey, Megan, Randy, and Melissa that
Yeah.
will be participating as commission members.
So since the minimum that each are requesting exceeds our available funds, could we ask any clarifying questions and do the scoring for one, and then do the same for the second, and then make a decision after we've discussed both? Would that?
Yeah, that is feasible to do. Just remember is that you're not making a final decision. You're just making a recommendation that goes on to the city council. City council will make the final decision on any funding awards.
Okay,
So with-
so we would go over Peace Trail first then. Is that first in the packet?
That's the first one in the packet.
Yes.
Okay.
So with that, Madam Chair, I guess it would open back to you if you would like any comments from the applicant, or if members have questions of the applicant.
Well, I would invite Leslie to share any pertinent updates. We've received some new information in our packet now that we didn't have back in, maybe it was January or February. So are there any kind of just overview details you want to share with the group first?
Mid-February, we received land use application approval. Any other updates? Do you have something specific, Casey? I mean, we're
I was curious when the land use was approved. That's good to hear.
Yeah, mid-February.
Okay.
Have you received any other funding, grants or notification beyond the update that is in our packet?
No, but that's not for lack of applying. So we've got some grants in for I have one grant in for federal funds, so I'm waiting to hear back from that. I think that's the only active other application out there right now. Yeah. Some of the larger corporations require you to have your 501c3 for 3 years. So we're working on our 501c3 for Peace Trail Village, which is separate from North Valley Friends, but it's all a process for sure.
I understand that the project is geared towards people who would be coming out of homelessness. Is that right? Transitional housing. Is there a process to check their incomes, or is it the assumption that somebody who's homeless generally does not have income? How is that going to work?
Yeah, because it's a transitional housing program, the caseworker will work alongside each guest, and the theory is that if you're coming from no work, that part of the program is to walk alongside you as you work and then increase rent in conjunction with how much you're working or accumulating income. And then the rent, your rent may be zero when you come in, or $5 a week, which is how much utilities cost right now for the tiny homes. And then that will stair step up as you get ready to get into permanent housing.
Leslie, I know that all of these units have plumbing. And I'm aware that city council, I'm not entirely sure the right language, but stopped pursuing a plan for a water pump station out there. Was this village at all dependent on the creation of that water pump station?
Yes, ma'am. So now it's on North Valley Friends Church to upgrade the pump station and provide for a backup generator. And right now we're in an engineering study to see, I don't know this technical information, Doug, you might have to help, to see how much that pump, how much water output, and really it's a fire code issue, like how much fire suppression system output that pump gives. And if it's not enough to add the church and the cottage cluster, then we need to upgrade that pump and a backup generator. Now, North Valley, Veritas, and Bill Rourke already bought new pumps to replace that pump station. So those have been sitting for a few years. And so hopefully it's just the backup generator that we will need to purchase. Because right now we're the only development in Oak Knoll that would require or put more stress on the water system.
Doug, can you tell me, with this particular grant, how long, once an applicant receives a grant, how long do they have to use it for the intended purpose?
That could be established by the commission. There's nothing in our principles and procedures document about a timeline. So when we've done grants before, they've been established in a timeline. There's a grant agreement that would have to be entered into, and I'd follow the direction of the commission. So the one we did, the last grant we did, it was for expenditure of the funds in a 1-year period. And that was to Habitat for their Brush with Kindness program.
Can it go beyond 1 year, Doug?
It could, yes.
Are there any other questions about the Peace Trail Village proposal?
I have one. Leslie, are you still on the application? The completion date says December 2024. Are you still feeling confident that that's the completion date?
Honestly, I have no idea when the completion date. I really wish I had a completion date, but each of these pieces just seems to take longer than I could ever imagine.
Mhm.
So I honestly have no idea.
Well, Leslie, I'll just jump in. My assumption is that like 1 or 2 could be completed and used, even if others aren't. I mean, that we can work on the project for a number of years but trying to have them come on. I mean, we would love to do the whole thing all at once if we have the funding and that for it. But that we also, you know, once we get the infrastructure in, we can do them one at a time as funds are available, and then have those be used as soon as they're, you know, done and approved, you know, past the inspections and all that.
That's right. That's one model. That's right. We could do that if we had to piecemeal it ourselves. A piece that I maybe didn't say in there. Home Builders Association is working with us. They've already agreed to partner with us. And they've been pitching our project to Lennar Homes. So another big piece of the unknown is if Lennar agrees to us, then they would come in and bring human power and want to knock it out all in one fell swoop and bring quite a bit of gifts in kind and even possibly funds along with them. So I am trying to stir every pot I can to get this thing moving. So
Doug, if a grant recipient expends the thing as expected, are they eligible to come back in a future year for the same grant?
Yes.
Okay.
Just remember is that we have a limited amount of funds available. So we started off this fiscal year with at least a adopted budget number of 63,630. 15% of that has to be held in contingency. The balance of it, and then it's all in the principles, and the balance then gets addressed and allocated to loans and grants. So the grant amount is usually right now, you know, around $16,000 a year, but as funds get expended, that dollar amount goes down over time because we have not been able to find funds to replenish and enhance this particular program.
Yes. And can you inform us the trust funds, does the fact that we didn't have any applicants for the loans at all impact the money that's available for the grants?
Yes, because it's in the principles, and so there's a percentage distribution that we have to follow, and that's what I put in the budget every year based upon what our estimated beginning fund balance is going to be. Does that answer your question, Casey?
I think so. Okay. Any other questions about the Peace Trail Village project?
I do have one question relating to the intention for how long this will remain transitional housing / affordable housing.
It's our intention that it will always be affordable housing. We have brainstormed, I mean, there's been backlash in the community about housing for houseless individuals. We've even brainstormed, what if we made it low-income housing for Fox students? Or, you know, our intention is to help address affordable housing in Newburgh with this cottage cluster, no matter what configuration it is. But our intention right now and the need we see is folks experiencing houselessness, and in particular partnering with Providence as folks come out either from a surgery or ways that their medical health isn't able to be addressed adequately because of housing specifically. So that's what would trigger someone to come and do Peace Trail Village.
Do you have any funding sources that are requesting for you to sign any kind of commitment for the housing to be affordable for a certain amount of time?
One of the things that we're working on potentially with the city is trading our ARPA funds for some CET funds to free up ARPA funds for the water treatment plant. And in that agreement is a 60-year commitment towards keeping it affordable housing.
But, okay, you're saying there's like a funding swap,
Yes,
okay. But so that 60-year commitment is not in place, but you're not opposed to that.
correct.
Yeah, and that swap is definitely not a done deal at this time. But again, as long as North Valley is in existence, our intention is to have this cottage cluster be low income or transitional housing. Yes.
Doug, would you walk us through again what you asked of us regarding the awarding of points to come up with a total score? How you want to do that?
Yes, so sending out the packet early provided you the opportunity to score the two applications that are in front of you. So I might suggest, now that you've had some questions of the first applicant, I can kind of walk through each one of you and you can provide me your scores. If we were in person, it'd be much easier, but doing it via Zoom. So I have my cheat sheet.
And we cannot hide.
And then I can enter your scores into this master log and then be able to give you what the total score is. Now, remember, the way the commission has established this, there's no minimum scoring threshold. There's a maximum number of points. So keep that in mind in your evaluation. So with that, why don't I start off with Melissa?
For question 7,
Yep.
I have 10.
Okay. Randy?
10.
Casey?
10.
Megan?
10.
Okay. So for question number 8, I'll change up the order each time, so just so I can keep you all off balance. So we'll start with Megan first.
12.
Casey?
15.
Melissa?
10.
Randy?
15.
Number 9, and we'll start with Randy.
5.
Then we'll go to Megan,
5.
then Melissa,
5.
and Casey.
5.
Okay. Question number 10. Let's start with Casey.
2.
Okay, Randy,
0.
Melissa,
2.
and Megan.
3.
Okay. Question, I see, criteria number 11. We'll start with Casey.
5.
Melissa,
5.
Randy,
5.
Megan.
5.
Okay. Then criteria 12, start with Melissa,
10.
Casey,
10.
Megan,
9.
Randy.
10.
Okay. Then I'll jump back to Megan for criteria number 13.
7.
Casey,
5.
Melissa,
5.
Randy.
5.
Okay. Then Randy, will start you off first on number 14.
5.
Then I'll go reverse order. Melissa,
6.
Casey,
4.
Megan.
5.
Okay. Now I have to do math.
Do you wish for us to wait for you to do that?
That would be very helpful.
All right.
Feel like there should be some Jeopardy music.
Come on, Doug. I did it on paper and I got done.
I'm done. I'm done. Larry, you're better than me. That's good.
I was a math teacher once in a long time ago.
Will you be giving us a total or an?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you a total. So that one came out to a total of 220.
And there were 4 of us scoring.
Yep.
70 times 4, is that 280?
55. Depends on how you want to approach it from here. So I've got all your scores. I can total up what each individual person's score was. You've got an aggregate total of 220.
Did I do my math right? My multiplication, it would be an aggregate of 220 out of 280. 70 times 4.
Mhm.
Is that
Doug, I got 200, not 220, but I'm not questioning your math.
Oh, always good for me to double check my math. I haven't done this since we were doing tourism stuff. So I came up with 220 2 times in a row.
great?
I'll go with yours.
Are we ready to begin discussion on the Meridian duplex?
You guys
Yep.
can start that off and I will keep doing math.
Okay. So I believe both Scott and Melissa are with us, right? Is there any kind of overview information you'd like to share with us?
Sure. We bought the duplex in September of 2021. And there was, I don't know what I can talk about or not. From the previous landlord, there was concerns regarding the rent moratorium. And when we came in and purchased it, when we met with, there's a older, I don't know if I'd go so far as to say elderly tenant, living by herself on the one side. And she expressed concern about the potential for the rent going up when we purchased it. And we assured her we were going to do everything we could to keep the rent where it was as low as possible for her. And this whole time that we've owned it, she's been a stand-up tenant, doing a great job, and always making her rent on time. We're trying to do the best we can for her. Right now, the rate that she's at is at the affordable housing line, and we're trying to do everything we can to keep the duplex as affordable as possible for everybody in there. The other side is a younger couple with 2 kids, and the major thing that came up in the home inspection when we purchased it was the condition of the driveway. And they said with kids and with older people residing on site, it is considered a hazard, and you want to make sure that you're doing everything you can to be taking care of it. But as recommended, we get it replaced. We had 2 different quotes for people coming out and doing the replacement, and it came back at $10,000, which was a big shock because that was not something that we expected to be that expensive. And so basically we were talking about, Melissa and I, when we were talking about things, trying to figure out what are we going to do. The only thing that came up when we saw this grant opportunity was this could be something that would give us the opportunity to make sure that we're able to keep the rents low. Because if we had to pay the $10,000 up front, the only way to kind of work towards recouping that investment in the property is to raise rent. And I know firsthand that rents have been getting out of control in Newburgh. And so that was our goal, was just do the best we can for the tenants we've got and make sure that we're pursuing every potential avenue for subsidizing it so that we can do that and keep their rents low.
What questions do you all have for Scott and Melissa?
I'll go, Scott. The two quotes or proposals that you received, are those from local? Is that from a local company here in Newburgh?
One, yes, is a local Newburgh company. There's a guy that I see around my neighborhood with a truck, but that's what he does, is his business is concrete flat work. And the other was a referral for somebody that was out of Portland.
Okay.
So those quotes were given to you last fall sometime, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know if those quotes are still good if you were to go for it tomorrow?
I do not specifically know. My expectations were I assumed that we weren't selected for the grant opportunity, just with not hearing anything for so long. And so we had been trying to find some other mitigating measures as far as patch repair and things to kind of keep the driveway in a safe place. But we hadn't been specifically keeping up with active quotes.
What kind of guarantee do we have that you will keep this affordable to the, I think it's called the moderate, low, and very low income residents?
I'm open and flexible. Is there something that would, I mean, honestly, it's like I have my honor, my word for everything, but is there anything that would be put in place with, I'm not sure with your committee or with the city of Newburgh, as far as not like a contract, but like terms? Like, is there something in mind that you would have for that, or?
I'm not sure if, that would be on the part of the city, but just understanding that with affordable housing, like if you're serving homelessness or transitional housing, those people are sort of automatically put in an under 30% AMI category. So then beyond that,
Right.
if you work with a nonprofit partner and they get funding that will then restrict the income and use and everything of a property for a certain amount of time. And at this state, it's I think it's standard 60 years now, like was mentioned earlier. So this is somewhere in the middle of that. And I don't know, Doug, if you guys have put income restrictions on properties and monitor, to have the capacity to monitor those.
We had established that in the construction excise tax program, where there was the 60-year provision. There would be deed restrictions. They would have to have done annual reporting to make sure that tenants or individuals who owned were at the 80% or less of the area median income, which increases every year. So that needed to be indexed. So that was a different program. This affordable trust fund, or the housing affordable trust fund, in its policies and procedures does not have that same. So that could be something that commission could say or recommend, at least to the council, is that you have a condition in a grant agreement and that the affordability provision needs to be in place in this situation for, I'll just pick some numbers, 10 years, 15 years, 12 years. Then it would require some annual reporting on behalf of the property owner back to the city to ensure that the tenants are under that 80% of area median income as indexed on an annual basis.
Does that in any way, I'm gonna say, cause any it's not HIPAA, it may not even be confidentiality, but for a landlord to require disclosure of the tenant's income, like the documentation it would take to prove that, does that in any way cause a problem?
Not that I'm aware of. Information like that that the city does receive is filed away in a secure location, so it's not accessible to get that information citywide. So basically goes in confidential files.
Okay.
I'm also wondering if the applicant thought about applying for the rehabilitation loan program, which looks like it might have possibly been a better fit for this ask.
Was that the question?
Yeah, like, had you thought
Um,
about doing an application for the rehabilitation loan program?
I was not aware of that at the time that we were notified about this. This was kind of a last minute, hey, there was a notification that went out towards the end of the year that said, hey, we don't really have anybody who's applied for this, so make sure you get in your applications now. And in looking through it, I felt like it was in the spirit of what we were trying to obtain for keeping the affordable housing, for being a landlord of affordable housing in Newburgh.
So you haven't done any of the work on the property that you had applied for this funding for since the application?
I would need to look at what all the items were that we put in on there. The primary one that was the big monetary ask was the driveway, but we've done a considerable amount of work to the property since the application.
Yeah, it was just, it looks to me like an application to replace the concrete for the shared driveway.
For this one. So I've heard kind of like two spectrums here and wondering if there's anything in between. So on one end, you said, you know, if you aren't awarded any grant at all for this, you would be looking at raising rent to cover that. On the other end, if you receive 10,000, you're open to some kind of rental restriction with some number to be determined of reporting to kind of prove that.
Mhm.
Is there a dollar point in between 0 and 10,000 where, you know, if you were awarded like 8,000, the numbers don't work, or, you know, if it's 5,000, you'd still be faced with raising rent? Like, is it 10 or nothing, or is there anything in between that would make sense for your business dollar wise?
Yeah, I don't think that it's an all or nothing as far as this goes. I was just saying that my thought process going into things was, if we weren't able to get anything to help subsidize it from the tenants being impacted on it, with the cost of everything else that's been going up, we've just been trying to do everything we can not to raise the rent. So if there was something in between, you know, we'd definitely be open to it. And I'd say in the spirit of, it doesn't really help for today, obviously, but in the spirit of that, going out and getting fresh quotes and seeing if prices have come down now that work is in a different place than it was when we were closer to COVID restrictions and supply chain issues for a lot of things like that, to see if we could get it done for, like you said, 8,000, or if the prices had come down to, let's say, 6,000. Because prior to people I spoke to when I was getting the quotes, they said, you know, back in 2018, 2019, we would expect that this would be a $3,000 job.
Yeah. I know when I'm thinking about like those different dollar amounts in my head, you know, an award of $5,000 might come with, you know, just me throwing out numbers personally, a desire to have like rental restrictions for, you know, 2 or 3 years. If it was the $1,000, I would want to see rental restrictions for, you know, somewhere between 5 and 10 years.
Sure.
Doug, is there any kind of like procedural thing that we can recommend where it's like we award up to X number of dollars and then the actual amount dispersed is based on an updated quote?
Yes, you could do that.
Well, I need to raise a point. I do have concerns about, I know, Doug, that you had said Mary had gone through the applications and determined that the minimum threshold criteria were met, but I have concerns that this application might not meet the minimum threshold criteria because this is not an affordable housing partner. It's two individuals that own for-profit housing, even though they are renting to people who are said to be lower income. There's just a lot of ifs about this that make me hesitant because it kind of opens up a can of worms for the entire community to then say, well, why shouldn't I get $10,000 to replace my driveway? And I do think the loan program might be a better fit for this application.
Well, I agree with Melissa. Would that, if they did the loan program, would they have to reapply for it, or could we just be like, change their application to the loan?
They would have to reapply. And so the next round for a notice of funding availability would be discussed at your July meeting and then on to council theoretically in August, and then a notice of funding availability would be out in September.
That's a whole year
It's
process.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's if it's had interest in that.
And for the record, I'm not saying that I don't. My understanding in reading through the documentation for the application on this, I didn't see, and I may have missed it, that I would have needed to be some sort of a partner, not part of a for-profit. Just the definitions on the website, as I understood it, was being a landlord who has a property or properties that support people in that lower income bracket, but having not lower income, but lower expense for the affordable housing, meeting those requirements for what is considered affordable housing.
I'm rereading through the memorandum that was given to us about the background of the Newburgh Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And I mean, I don't see, just skimming through it, I don't see anything that excludes or even says like one kind of housing owner is prioritized over the other. Is there info beyond this background that we need to be aware of, Doug?
So you go to section 3 in your policies and procedures, which is eligible uses and activities. And so the first is that the funds have to go to households at 80% or less of the area median income. Then the second one is trust funds will be limited to those activities that create, preserve, or acquire housing within Newburgh city limits. The third one is housing developments financed by the fund, which receives subsidy financing, tax credits, or other assistance under state or federal programs may have contained market rate units. And so this was, you can have market rate and affordable units. The next one, is affordable housing and awards and shall comply with the income and housing cost limits established by the Newburgh Municipal Code in 15-242-030, which is again 80% or less of the area median income. And then the Affordable Housing Trust Fund can be provided as either a grant or a loan, depending on the project or program receiving funding. The commission augmented those base criteria with what was actually out in the notice of funding availability, which is numbers 1 through 6. So the first one is 80% or less. Second one is the project is related to the provision of technical assistance to affordable housing providers. So in this case, that one would not apply. The project is ready for implementation. Scott has indicated that, I will say broadly, he's ready. The fourth one deals with acquisition of property. And there's no acquisition of property in this application. The fifth one is relocation of residents will be minimized, and when necessary, the applicant include accurate relocation assistance costs as part of a project pro forma. They're not proposing to relocate anyone. And then the sixth one is that demonstrates that the trust funds are the most appropriate funding source for the project. So they're broad.
And the application itself has a checkbox for both nonprofit and for-profit. I noted that as informational, not that one was acceptable and one wasn't.
I think that, and the reason I asked the prior application how they were going to look at income, which theirs is homelessness and transitional housing, which generally get kind of a pass in the meeting the AMI categories for people who have need for affordable housing. I just have, I don't know if I personally believe that they're going to be able to meet the 80% or less AMI income, like checking people's income. Like that's a whole job within itself, and doing it like in an official way when you work with affordable housing agencies and owners versus if the city, like we can't do it on a handshake, right? This is government money. It's people who have, I mean, I'm not going to say taxpayer money, but it is people who have paid into the city coffers, and to that we have a responsibility to make sure that if we're saying it's going to people who are less than 80% of AMI, that it is. And so what kind of assurances do we have that a private landowner with a rental property has the capability to do that?
Was that posed to me?
Well, no, it's to the committee discussion.
Just checking, just checking.
It's just for like, that's where I come from. That is my work that I do. And it makes me uncomfortable. And the way in our business that we meet that as a government entity is requiring federal funding sources that have those restrictions already layered on. So a city or county government doesn't have to do that themselves, or they do it themselves. So, you know, or they take that on. So I'm just having, there may be ways to solve it. Like if the committee was, wanted to come up with a restriction, whether it was 5 years or 10, I feel like 2 would maybe be too low. $5,000 a year to for 2 years to supplement somebody's rent just seems a little bit irresponsible to me.
Mm-hmm. And I'm personally erring on the side of like, let's not require paperwork to check these tenants' incomes for like a decade. Make it a little bit reasonable somewhere in there. I have that same concern, Melissa, and I mean, I have my own personal biases towards like nonprofits, right? But the way that this is written, for-profit is totally, within the use. So how do we enable for-profits to access this where it's not like, well, we just assume like, well, it's going to be hard to do it, so we can't do it. Like if it's permissible, yeah, how do we solve that problem? How do we make it feasible? Doug, I'm just gonna put you on the spot and ask if you have any insight on, city staff side. If there was a request for, assurance that the tenants really are at 80% or less on an annual basis for X number of years. Is there a way for our award recipients to prove that to the city in a reasonable way that's not an undue burden on city staff?
The most logical, I won't say the prudent, but most logical way would have a grant awardee provide probably a copy of tax returns to see what their income level is based upon the number of individuals living in each unit. Somehow we have to be able to validate, what a tenant's income level is. First thought is federal tax return.
I had
Or
that thought
state.
too.
Then that raises the question, would the tenants be willing to provide that information or not? I don't know. But just a statement that says, well, yeah, they do, we can't verify that because we don't have access to what their income levels are. As Melissa was getting to, when we deal with federal programs, there are all kinds of layers of checks and balances to get those assurances and the documentation that individuals are meeting the income thresholds.
So when landlords are approving tenants for leases, at least in my experience, they look at a single month's paycheck, not my tax return from the year before. Would it be acceptable to this committee to ask the landlord to show a single month's pay stub like they would use to authorize tenant for a lease rather than like an entire year's income return?
That is another, that gets to then, while a tenant is in the space, and this is all again hypothetical, they change jobs, their income goes up, and you're waiting 11 months or 8 months or 6 months or 5 months, whatever that job change occurs, and then you get a new pay stub, then it shows that they are no longer within the 80% or less. Then that raises the question of, how do you claw back the funds
Right.
that
And
were expended if tenants are no longer meeting the 80% or less AMI threshold?
And I also have a not hypothetical. The single lady that lives on the one side of the duplex is retired, and she now works part-time. But she's retired, and so what she does is she manually pulls from her retirement account to pay her rent and pay for groceries, and so she doesn't have a pay stub for that. I mean, she does now she's taken up a few hours of a part-time job, but so I don't want to completely rock the boat. I don't want to discount myself with it being one property versus, I do think it's an extraordinary opportunity for the other applicant, but I don't want to discount myself, obviously. But I don't know if there's like what was proposed is potentially a different opportunity that would better fit my property, my situation, apart from the time frame would be less desirable. Is there any other kind of more formal recommendations that would be made versus? It seems like there's a lot of hypothetical and asterisks regarding, even if I technically met the requirements with what it would take. It just seems like if there's a lot of hesitation from people when it comes down to scoring me, that it would probably end up following suit with those reservations.
So I feel a little bit bad that our applicants are kind of getting to see like the sausage making factory at work here. To my understanding, this is like a fairly new process. I don't know how many years this program's been around, but yeah, I feel like we have a really great for-profit applicant that meets like all the intents of this program. And I'm not seeing it yet on how to make it happen in a way that is accountable for those concerns that Melissa raised. Unless, you know, unless it was shown to me like, yes, there is a process to carry this through and everything is good. I'm hesitant on that just because it doesn't look like there's a very clear way to check all those things without feeling like there's an undue burden on the tenants themselves. Like I don't want them to be penalized for getting a pay increase, and I don't want our landlord to be penalized because the tenant got a pay raise. That sounds difficult to track later on.
So the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So it was established in 2012, so it's 10 years ago. So we've been doing notice of funding availabilities for a decade. No one has ever applied for a loan. There have been various entities who've applied for grants. Those entities typically have been nonprofits. So this is our first time when we've had a for-profit property owner coming forward with a request. So yes, does look a little bit like sausage making, but every year something's a little bit new, something's a little different.
Doug, when this was opened up for the applications, were all four open at the same time, the competitive loan, rehab loan? So, I mean, with us reviewing it, could we not say we by default would recommend? I mean, why would we need to reopen it if there's a recommendation, if they would even want to have this loan, which sounds like it would be at less than market interest, 2% less, 2% below prime.
If that is the wish of the commission and you want to go that route and your recommendation would be to the council instead of a grant is a rehabilitation loan, I could say, yes, you could make that recommendation.
Is the checklist the same for the rehabilitation loan as it is that we've been using for this grant program?
Yes,
but the money gets paid back.
that is correct.
And because of that, there's not the ongoing proof of 80%, right? Like there's current.
Any of the programs, either the loans or the grants, you still have the requirement that it has the tenants or owners have to be 80% or less of area median income.
How does that work with a loan though? We give the loan, they pay, they spend it, and then they start paying it back.
They pay it back, but there would also be reporting requirements to ensure that if it was a rental property, is that the tenants that are in that space, gets back to the conversation we had on the grant, is how do you document that the tenants are in compliance with the 80% or less of area median income.
And what happens if they're not? Does the interest rate of the loan go up?
It could be that a loan document is structured that there would be a clawback or a balloon payment if the tenants did not comply with the 80% or less.
Okay, because in a grant, it makes sense to me that if it's non-compliant, you have to pay the grant back. With a loan, well, they have to pay it back. So, yeah, what would the condition be if there was not compliance later on?
So that's something that the commission would want to take into consideration in any kind of recommendation. And of course, then legal counsel who would be drawing up any loan would be participating in drawing up any loan documents would also have to weigh in.
Would we like to go ahead and do our scores at this time?
Sounds like that's what we'll do. So we'll start off with number 7, Megan.
5.
Casey,
8.
Melissa,
Well, I'm going to say 0, and I want to say it's because it's not new affordable housing. It's
Okay.
just housing.
Randy,
5.
then we'll start off with number 8, Casey,
As is, it's not there, but I'm gonna go with 5.
Melissa,
0.
Randy,
5.
Megan,
7.
number 9, Melissa,
0.
Randy,
3.
Megan,
2.
Casey.
0.
All right. So then we'll go with number 10, Randy,
0.
Megan,
1.
Casey,
2.
Melissa.
1.
Okay. Number 11, Megan,
3.
Casey,
5.
Melissa,
1.
Randy.
2.
Next one, number 12, Casey,
I left that one blank. 4.
Melissa,
I have 0.
Randy,
5.
Megan.
5.
Melissa, we'll start off with you on number 13.
5.
Randy,
8.
Megan,
6.
Casey.
7.
Okay. Number 14, Randy,
10.
Megan,
6.
Casey,
9.
Melissa.
7.
Now I have to pull out the gonculator again. 126 total.
Thank you for your math skills.
So you are at the juncture of what you would like to recommend or not recommend. And an amount. Knowing that we have $16,755.
Does anyone want to throw out something as a starting spot?
Well, I would recommend funding Peace Trail Village at the full amount available, but with an exception. That being that I don't think the money should be available right away. I think they should work to fill the large funding gap that they still have so that we can ensure that the money is spent on a project that is going to go through to completion, and instead of being spent now and the project could actually stop and not happen.
Okay, so there could be some kind of a funds are not dispersed until, you know, some percentage. 100 feels a little high to me, but maybe like 75, 80%
Right.
funds are.
And actually proof of even the in-kind, some of that work I think is figured into their $800,000 total. And so obviously the in-kind work is just as important. So
Yeah, that has a dollar value for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. So parallel to that, this is totally dependent on whether Scott and Melissa would be even interested. I want to throw out the possibility of recommending to the council to award a competitive loan of $10,000 and ask that the 80% income threshold be approved for 2, maybe 3 years. Not a super lengthy number of years, that it will be paid back.
I could go with that.
Yeah, I like that suggestion.
What, I got a question. The competitive loan versus the rehab loan, what's the difference again in that, Doug?
So the competitive awards program, so we have to issue an RFP. City assesses the project's proposal, determine if the eligibility criteria are met, which we're talking about. We'll provide applicants the opportunity to make a presentation. They've done that. Commission will develop an award recommendation. The Newburgh City Council will make a final decision. City will prepare. Proposals. It may actually be more conducive to go in the time-sensitive loan program.
Standard loan term is 2 years for that one, whereas the rehabilitation loan is 5 years.
Right.
The interest rate is the same.
Now you have to remember that when you get into the loans, that the applicant has to pay a loan processing fee is equal to 1% of the loan or $100, whichever is greater. That's for the time sensitive. Rehabilitation, again, has to pay a loan processing fee equal to 1% of the loan or $100, whichever is greater.
My concern with the time sensitive, the loan term being 2 years, that puts a greater likelihood of needing to raise rents. But if the term was 5 years, that possibly lasts for more time.
I would agree with that.
And it could be paid off faster by the applicant if they wanted to pay it off faster. But both accounts have the possibility of awarding the full 10,000.
So yes, the rehabilitation does have the 5 years, whereas the time sensitive has the 2.
So we're making some assumptions, Scott and Melissa, but are you willing to tell us if you have an interest in doing the loan option if the council approves that?
I think that we would definitely want to look it over with the business numbers and make sure that made sense with us with what the final terms are. To see if that's the avenue that we would want to go with it.
Right. And Doug, if the council approves something, I mean, the recipients still have to agree to that. They're not.
Right, there would be a loan document, so the recipient could choose not to sign and execute the loan documents.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions, thoughts, alternatives, etc.? So let me summarize where I think we are. We are considering recommending that the Peace Trail Village be awarded $16,755.75, but not dispersed until 75% of the needed funds or in-kind work is accounted for and provided to the city. Is that right? Okay, I'm seeing some head nods.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay. And then we're recommending that the city council offer a rehabilitation loan to Meridian Duplex for up to $10,000. That might give bond triggers an option to sign for less if the new quote comes in at less, but up to $10,000. Without having to redo the application process.
Do we all vote?
So what we need is I could restate this and somebody could say that's the motion and then we would need a second. So what I captured was for Peach Trail Village, an award of $16,755.75. And not to be dispersed until 75% of the needed funding or in-kind has been provided. And for the duplex on Meridian, a recommendation for a rehabilitation loan up to $10,000 without having to reapply through an application process.
Oh, and we should add to that that the affordability of the project is reported for what, 2 years, 3 years, up to 5 years? What sounds good? Because the loan's for 5 years, so that's probably our maximum. Well, I guess it doesn't have to be, but
It's up to all of you what
Right.
the length of time is.
I'm a simpler is better kind of person.
3 years?
Yeah,
Yeah, I would say 3.
3 years.
Okay.
All right, so that's your motion. I just need somebody to say, yes, that's the motion. And then we need a second.
Do we have someone who will make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll
Okay,
I'll second.
and Melissa seconds.
All right, then we just need a vote. So
All
All
right,
those in-
let's take a vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. I'm allowed to vote, right, Doug?
yep,
Okay. Any opposed?
I don't see any opposition, so it passes 4-0.
All righty.
So thank you for coming to the German sausage making plant.
And thank you to all of our applicants for answering our questions. I know that this is not easy to like bear your projects in front of, and just thank you so much.
Of course, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to review our application, and I obviously didn't have any way of knowing that there wasn't anybody that had applied as a for-profit before where it would be this much work of like for you guys figuring things out. So that was definitely not our intention. We're just trying to do the best we can for the tenants that we have. So really
Okay.
appreciate you
Blazing
guys.
new
and-
trails.
Yeah, I would say for the benefit of potential other people, make sure the application is very specific. Because I did see a reference to the potential for requiring, or however you want to say it, but future tenants, we'll say, maintaining that 80% and some of these other things that we talked about. But as far as like a 60-year term or something really long term like that, the reference I saw, I believe, was like 5 years for what I was looking at on the Newburgh website. So I would just want to make sure that everybody's time is as well suited and being used as possible. So
Scott,
I appreciate you though.
we always take good suggestions because every year this commission has to go back and reevaluate the whole application packet process before it gets recommended to the council again for another NOFA posting. So thank you for the
Awesome.
comments.
Sure.
Larry, I would like to give you back the gavel.
The baton. All right. And Doug, just a question. May I assume that if for some reason the council does not approve these, the money just kind of rolls over into the into the program?
That is correct. So I budgeted next year, assuming that funds would be expended this year. The numbers will change a little bit, but so I tried to anticipate that. So any unspent funds just go into contingency and they will be available in the future.
All right, well, moving on. Good job, folks, by the way. Good discussions. And I think what we have now is a whole series of updates.
So that's back to me. So we have the Habitat closeout report from the last grant that we had done. So that grant agreement terminated at the end of December of 2022. So there was a $5,000 award for the Brush with Kindness program. I included the quarterly reports that were part of their grant agreement so that you can see the numbers. In the end, they did return $2,507.60 that was not expended. So again, this goes back into the trust fund. Then the construction excise tax. And so council's been having conversations about the CET program. It is actually on their agenda, late breaking news. It's on their agenda on May 1st, where they will be discussing terminating the program and stopping the collection of the CET. So more to come. The block grant, I've signed off on 17 projects for manufactured homes in manufactured home parks. So we're continuing to work with the Housing Authority. That program needs to be closed out by December 20th and paperwork submitted to Business Oregon. So we're continuing to move forward. The housing production strategy that has gone from the CAC, it went to the Planning Commission. Planning Commission recommended approval of the housing production strategy. We had a work session, several work sessions with council. They had requested some changes to some of the actions. We've done that. So that is going back in front of the city council on May 1st as well. The multifamily code audit, Planning Commission reviewed that one, recommended council adopt it. Council did their first reading. Then on April 17th, they did their second reading and they did approve the new clear and objectives process for multifamily housing. That's 5 units and above. And this is for site design, building design, and site layout. And so that ordinance has now been passed and will go into effect 30 days after April 17th. I included a copy of the council goals in your packet so you could see. Those were adopted on April 3rd. So you can see what the city council is looking at over the next several years, couple of years, of what their priorities are. So that is my updates, Mr. Chair.
All right. Any questions or comments or anything? Oh, I see.
I have one.
Go ahead, Melissa.
Okay. What are the changes council is recommending for the housing production strategy?
I knew somebody would ask me that question. Let's see. There was one. Hold on. Easiest way to do it is through track changes. So let me open that document up. Open the wrong one. Open the wrong one. All right, so council asked, well, they added. I gotta look at a couple of documents. So under reducing the system development charges, they that was one where what is it? And looking with households of income below 60%, and they added some language that says for home ownership, but not for renters. The one under land banks, they added a word that says supports partnerships to develop housing by potentially using surplus city land. They removed the multi-unit tax program. They added middle housing land divisions as an action, and they added rezoning land for housing and expanding the urban growth boundary. And there was one other. People walk into my office and see all these papers, but there is organized madness by all my piles of paper. They also added that the housing production strategy be reviewed annually as directed by the city council. They modified the time horizon on the density bonus, and they recommended moving that to an outward year in the 8-year horizon. And then they removed the reduced permit fees for affordable housing as an action.
What was the last one you said?
Reduce permit fees for affordable housing. They removed that action. So they removed 2 and ended up actually adding 3. And then did some wordsmithing on some others, and then adjusted the time horizon again. And that's all going back to council on May 1st. And so we'll have to see if there's any additional adjustments that they come up with.
All right, Casey, did you still have a question?
I did. It's about the council goals, and it's totally possible that no one in this room is like the right person to answer these questions, but I'm just going to ask. In goal 2, the second line is about zoning light manufacturing. And then down in goal 7, it mentions light industrial. And I'm just curious, are those 2 different things?
They are the same.
They're the same. Okay. So the goal that's a related to housing, do we know at this point if that has anything to do with specifically affordable housing and this committee? Or is it just housing in general?
I take it as housing in general.
Okay. So I have a second question. Does the fact that affordable housing is no longer a stated goal in any way stop the work that this group is doing? Like, we continue to exist even if it's not a stated goal?
The commission has been constituted. It's in the municipal code. To not have an affordable housing commission, the council would have to remove that, direct staff and or the legal department to modify the municipal code.
Okay. So no automatic change there just because it's not a specifically stated goal.
It is, affordable housing is not an officially stated goal.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments or anything? Looks like our next scheduled meeting is July 25th. I'm sure there'll be a scintillating agenda sent out, a week or so before that. But you can just look forward to it now.
So I would, Mr. Chair, take a moment to let all of you know that I will be retiring. And so my last day with the city will be November 1st. So I will be with you for your July meeting and your October meeting.
Well, we'll make sure and have treats, at least for one of those.
I'm still trying to get us back to in person. So
Yeah.
still working on it, which always leads to, these meetings are on Tuesdays. And so our city, the public safety building is set up to do hybrid meetings, but it's court day. So your meeting conflicts with court. So there's always the opportunity to change the day. You can keep the time, it's something to think about. We can talk about it at July. I've also talked with IT about what we would need to do to be able to do hybrid meetings in our conference room with our big screen TV. So I might talk with them about that again on Monday morning.
All righty then. Well, thanks, everybody. It was good to finally get that settled, have a full slate of people here to be able to get it done. So thanks for everybody for showing up. And again, the good work in working through those and good questions and recommendations. So, all
So
right.
Randy is our newest member. Randy, we didn't really do introductions. We
Yeah.
just kind of jumped in. Any kind of comments you would like to make? Self-introduction to the commission members?
Yeah, I can be real brief. And my name is Randy Rickards. Lived in Newburgh area for off and on for 40 years. The off part was when I was in college, pretty much, but just came back and have I grew up here, came back after college and raised my family here, and been a part of this community for a long time. Not only myself, but my parents and my grandparents as well. So I'm just happy to be able to serve this community and on this commission. It's exciting for me to be a part of something else. So I was looking for something else to do. My kids are I've got one in college and one's a junior in high school, and my junior in high school doesn't really want to hang out with me anymore. So I was looking for something else to do, and this is perfect for me because I do have a background in construction and facilities as well. So my current occupation is I work in senior living, and the company that I work for, we develop and we build and we operate senior living communities throughout Oregon, Washington, and Montana. So I'm part of the facility side of things. So I'm excited to be here. Looking forward to this.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, hopefully dinner is waiting for all of us, at home when or maybe some of you are there already, and maybe you have to do it before it's ready, but all right. Well, it's good to see y'all, and if not before, we'll see you in July.